Good morning. Today I'll be sharing on my presentation on the topic connective development in adulthood. My name is Noalena Nabila binti Sazali and I'm from Group 7. I will now introduce my group members. When we hear the word connective development, we often imagine a children learning to speak, read, or solve puzzles. But actually, connective development continues well into adulthood, just in a different ways. As we grow older, our thinking changes, it becomes more flexible, more realistic, and more focused on solving real-world problems. In this presentation, I'll walk you through a quick overview of the key areas that we'll be covering in this presentation. First, I will begin with an introduction to what connective development looks like during adulthood. Next, I will explore the factors and the stages of adulthood. After that, Free will take over and discuss on the relevant theory to help us understand better on the pattern of connective changes in adults. Then Yaya will highlight the risk issues and case example. Then Faiza will wrap up with a conclusion that summarizes our finding. And lastly, our reference. Without further ado, we'll start with our introduction. So what exactly is connective development in adulthood? It refers to the progression and changes in mental abilities such as thinking, reasoning, decision-making, memory, and problem-solving throughout the adult lifespan. It's different from childhood development. In childhood, we focus on learning facts, like the alphabet or math, but in adulthood, we focus on applying knowledges to real-life situations. Let me explain the three key concepts that describe how adults think. First is post-formal thoughts. This is where adult things become more flexible and emotionally aware. Adults learn to accept that not every problem has a clear right or wrong answer. For example, a conflict at work might not be solved by logic alone. It might require empathy or compromise. Number 2 is pragmatic thinking. Adults start making decisions based on what works, not just what sounds ideal in theory. For example, instead of taking their dream job far away, someone might choose a closer one to stay near family. And lastly is relativistic thinking. Adults understand that the truth and knowledge can vary. What's right for one person or culture might not be the same for another. For example, how we discipline children or manage time can be very different across cultures, and that is okay. So connective development in adulthood using our thinking skills and practically, emotionally, and socially aware. Now, let's talk about the factors that influence how adult thinking develops. There are several important ones and I will explain each one with an example. Firstly is education and work experience. People who have higher education usually develop better reasoning, critical thinking, and verbal skills. Also, having a challenging job helps keep the brain active, especially jobs that require planning, decision-making, or creativity. For example, a teacher constantly adapts lessons and solves student problems in which that will sharpen their thinking over time. Secondly is health and lifestyle. Our physical health is closely tied to our brain health. Regular exercise, a good diet, and a quality sleep all help improve attention and memory. On the other hand, chronic illness like diabetes or high blood pressure can negatively affect cognitive abilities. For example, a retired man who walks every morning and eats healthy may stay mentally sharper than someone who is inactive and isolated. Thirdly is social relationships. Strong social ties like family, friends, or community support are protective for the brain. They reduce stress, provide emotional support, and give us chances to communicate and think socially. For example, someone who joins a weekly book club or volunteers stays mentally active and connected. The fourth is emotional intelligence. These refer to the ability to understand and manage your own emotion and relate to others. Adults with high emotional intelligence tend to solve problems better, especially in emotional or stressful situations. For example, a manager who handles a workplace conflict calmly and with empathy is showing emotional intelligence. All these factors work together. Someone with good health and stimulating job, strong friendship, and emotional intelligence is more likely to maintain or even improve their cognitive abilities as they age. Next, we'll explore on the stages of cognitive development in adulthood. These stages were proposed by K. Warner Chase and show how our thinking shifts depending on our age and life responsibilities. To be noted, Shays' full model has 7 stages, but only 6 of the stages apply to adulthood. The first stage is acquisitive stage. occurs during a childhood and adolescence when individuals gather knowledge for its own sake. For example, learning in school. Since our topic is focused on adulthood, I will start with the achieving stage and onwards. Now, let's go through them one by one. First is achieving stage, which is the early adulthood between our 20s to 30s. In these stages, adults use their thinking to make important life decisions, such as starting a career, choosing a partner, or planning their future. For example, a young adult deciding whether to move to a new city for a job is in the achieving stage. Secondly is responsible stage, which is in the middle adulthood between our 30s to 60s. During this stage, our thinking focuses more on the others, such as family, children, or work teams. Adults become problem solvers for those who they care about. For example, a parents managing finance and taking care of their children in the responsible stage. Thirdly is executive stage. This stage is for adults who manage large organization or system like CEOs, school principals, or government officials. It involves big pictures thinking and planning. For example, a hospital director planning long-term strategies will be in this stage. Fourthly is reorganizational stage, which in the early late adulthood between 60s to 70s. Well, after retirement, people begin to reorganize their daily life. They focus on meaningful activities like hobbies, volunteering, or spending time with families. For example, a retired teacher who mentors students part-time is in this stage. The fifth stage is reintegrative stage, which is in later adulthood between 70s to 80s. Adults' thinking become more selective and personal. People focus only on tasks that matters to them emotionally. For example, an elderly person may enjoy gardening because it brings peace and joy, not because it's productive. Lastly is legacy creating stage. It happens in the very late adulthood between 80s and beyond. In this final stage, adults prepare for the end of life. They might write a will, pass down stories, or create something meaningful for future generations. For example, a grandmother creating a memory book for her grandchildren is in the legacy creating stage. Each of these stages shows how connective development is not just about getting older, it's about how our goals, responsibilities, and values shapes the way we think. Now, I'll pass to Faiza on the theory of connective development in adulthood.
Thank you, Alena Bila, for the great explanation. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Faiza Nadira binti Muhammad Zaidi, and now moving forward, I'll be talking about the relevant theories to help us understand cognitive development during adulthood, especially as people grow older and enter the later stages of life. Let's start with a classic distinction made by Raymond Cattell, the theory of fluid versus crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is our ability to solve new problems, use logic, and process information quickly. It's what we use when we try to figure something out without relying on past experiences, like solving puzzles or doing mental math. It usually peaks in young adulthood and declines as we age. Crystallized intelligence, on the other hand, is based on knowledge and skills we've gained throughout our life, things like vocabulary, facts, and especially life experiences. This type tends to stay stable or even improve in late adulthood. Here's a simple example. Imagine a young adult trying to figure out how to set up a new phone with all the updates and downloads. They'll probably do it quickly because of high fluid intelligence. But an older adult may take longer to figure out the phone, but they could give great life advices thanks to their crystallized intelligence. So, although older adults may react slower, they often show more wisdom and better judgment, supported by researchers like Van Huren et al. And Dixon et al. Next, we have life review theory, proposed by Robert Butler in 1963. This theory suggests that as people enter late adulthood, they naturally begin to reflect on their life, asking deep and meaningful questions like, did my life have meaning? Or did I even make the right choices? It's closely tied to Erik Erikson's final psychosocial stage, ego integrity versus despair. The main goal during this stage is to achieve ego integrity, where older adults look back on their life with acceptance, pride, and peace. Without this, they may experience regret, bitterness, or a sense that their life was unfulfilled. Life review isn't just reminiscing, it's a powerful psychological process that helps older adults gain self understanding, make sense of both joyful and painful memories, resolve inner conflicts, and often find emotional closure. For example, think about a retired teacher who reflects on the many students that they've helped and teach over the years. Remembering the impact they made can bring a deep sense of purpose, pride, and emotional satisfaction, supporting their overall well being in old age. In this way, the life review can be seen as a mental and emotional tidying up, a chance to find peace before the final chapters in their life. Now, let's dive into the activity theory proposed by Robert Havinghurst in the 1960s. This theory suggests that successful aging isn't about slowing down, it's about staying engaged. According to Havinghurst, older adults thrive when they continue participating in meaningful activities that stimulate them physically, mentally, and socially. Instead of withdrawing, they keep doing what brings them joy and purpose, whether it's volunteering, gardening, joining community events, leading prayer circles, or even slaying at weekly Zumba classes. Research supports this idea, showing that an active lifestyle in late adulthood helps preserve self esteem, physical strength, cognitive sharpness, and emotional balance. For instance, imagine a grandmother who still bakes her signature cake lapis every week for her family. That simple act keeps her connected, gives her a sense of routine and purpose, and nourishes her emotional and cognitive health. In short, activity theory celebrates the idea that aging means living well, with movement, meaning, and connection. While activity theory is widely supported, it's also important to briefly mention the disengagement theory, proposed by Cumming and Henry in 1961. This theory suggests that as people age, they naturally begin to withdraw from social, physical, and emotional roles. For example, spending less time with friends, stepping away from community duties, quitting old hobbies, or emotionally distancing themselves from others. The idea behind this is that gradual disengagement allows older adults to reflect on their life, come to terms with mortality, and prepare emotionally for the end of life. Disengagement was once seen as normal and even healthy part of aging. However, this theory is now considered controversial and outdated. Many psychologists and gerontologists argue that staying active, socially connected, and mentally engaged, as seen in activity theory, has far more positive outcomes, especially for maintaining cognitive function, emotional well being, and overall life satisfaction. Furthermore, this theory tends to ignore the individual differences in aging. Not everyone wants to withdraw. In fact, many older adults continue to play important roles in families and communities, showing that aging doesn't mean to step back, but rather finding new ways to stay involved. So, to bring it all together, we've explored a few key theories that shed light on how the adult mind continues to grow and adapt. Fluid versus crystallized intelligence help us understand what evolves and what endures. Life review theories offered a lens into reflection, healing, and finding meaning. Activity theory reminded us that staying engaged fuels both mind and the spirit. And disengagement theory gave us a glimpse into a more traditional view, now mostly debated but still a part of the conversation on aging. Ultimately, these theories show that adulthood isn't a cognitive standstill, it's a chapter of depth, resilience, and redefinition. With that, I'll pass it over to Nit Nur Alia, who guide us through the next part of our journey. Thank you so much for listening, and that is all from me.
Next, I will be presenting about any risk issues in adulthood cognitive development. As people grow older, their thinking, memory, and focus can change. These changes are sometimes normal, but there are also certain risk factors that can make things worse. So, moving on to the first risk, which is the neurodegenerative diseases, especially the Alzheimer's disease. This illness slowly damages the brain, causing the memory loss and confusion. It happens because of a build-up of a harmful protein in the brain called beta amyloid. Alzheimer's usually starts after age 65 and affects more than 5 million people in the US. This information is based on Feldman and the Alzheimer's Association. The second risk is depression and anxiety. Many older adults may feel sad or worried, but we sometimes don't notice that. Depression can look like dementia because it causes forgetfulness and low energy. The good news is that this condition is treatable with therapy and support. This is supported by research from Dennis and his team in 2013. The third risk is polypharmacy, which means taking too many medications. Older people often take 5 or more medicines at once. This can cause side effects like confusion or memory problems, especially when some medicines react badly with each other. A study by Sachs Erickson in 2005 has explained this issue. So, in conclusion, these three things, Alzheimer's disease, depression, and taking too many medications, are bad risk factors that can influence the cognitive problems in adulthood. But with early help and support, these problems can be often managed or reduced. Next, I will share 3 case examples that related with cognitive development in adulthood. Each example shows how aging affects thinking and memory and how it can be supported through activities and lifestyle. The first example is a figure from Understanding Psychology textbooks. It shows how different cognitive skills change with age. According to the graph by Skay in 2005, perceptual speed and numeric ability usually decline as people get older, but not all skills go down. Verbal ability, verbal memory, and also crystallized intelligence often stay the same or even improve. This means that while some thinking abilities may weaken, others can still remain strong or get better. This supports the idea of selective cognitive aging, where only certain parts of our thinking are affected by it. The second example comes from a 2016 article by Daily Sabah. In a nursing home in Antalya, Turkey, older adults were given a structured program with memory and logic games. One of the residents, Mr. Orhan Demirol, said these games really helped improve his thinking and problem solving. The program's coordinator also explained how games like these supports mental and social activity in old age. A related study by King's College London with over 7,000 adults aged 50 and above found that pupils who played brain games at least 5 times a week had better daily thinking abilities. These examples support the activity theory of aging, which says that staying mentally and socially active can protect our brain as we age. Lastly, we have a real-life example of Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, which is our former Prime Minister. Even in his 90s, he continues to be active in politics, public speaking, and writing. He is known for his sharp memory and clear thinking. This real-life example shows how staying mentally and socially active can help protect the brain function in later adulthood. This case strongly supports the activity theory of aging, which suggests that people who continue with meaningful activity, such as in social engagement, will age more successfully. Dr. Mahathir's daily routine has reflects this theory very well. In the YouTube video by Medical Channel Asia titled How to Live as Long as Dr. Mahathir, he shares some of his habits that help maintain his mental sharpness. He talks about how he reads regularly, eats moderately, avoids overeating, and continues to stay involved in current issues. He believes that the key to staying mentally sharp is to keep the brain active by using it every day. He says, if you don't use your brain, it gets rusty like any machine. This video also shows how healthy lifestyle, intellectual activity, and purpose play an important role in keeping the brain strong even at an advanced age. It gives real evidence that supports both psychological theory and real-world practice. As Dr. Mahathir once said, as long as the mind is active, you are doing something, you don't really feel old. From the start 2020, this shows that although aging brings some changes in thinking, many older adults can maintain or improve their cognitive skills through active lifestyles, mental stimulation, and continued in social roles.
We're here today at the Perdana Leadership Foundation in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, for a very special interview with a very special guest. He's none other than Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, a very, very familiar name for anyone living in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia. And he's going to share with us some thoughts on how he has charted the path for Malaysia's growth over the last 4 decades and his personal, political, and doctor's career. Let's go check it out. Today we have a very, very special guest with us. We are speaking to Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. I'm going to ask you, you are 98 going on 99. And here we are in the morning in your office. You have just done your morning routine. You're starting the day. What is the secret, sir?
There is no secret, actually. If you are not suffering from some fatal disease like cancer, you are well placed to live a longer life. But of course, you have to take care of yourself. The most important thing is not to grow fat. You see, if you eat too much and you grow fat, that puts a strain on your heart. So if the heart can function for 100 years, when you put a strain on it, the period will be shortened. So on the other hand, you have also to be active. If you're not active, then somehow the heart weakens, the body weakens, your muscles weaken. And if you don't think, if you don't write, read, talk, discuss, you don't use your brain, the capacity to think also will deteriorate. So it is important that as you grow older, you should be careful not to eat too much. You should be careful about being active. You should also be stimulate your brain through reading, writing, talking, discussing, and the like. And beyond that, of course, we have to be active to work. When you are pensioned off, don't just go back and sleep. That's bad. But when you are pensioned off, find something to do, something interesting to do, and keep yourself active. At the same time, of course, you have to keep your mind active also. So that is how I manage myself.
That's fantastic. I heard that you have a morning routine that you go through before starting your day. Is it something that you can share with us a little bit about?
Not very much, really. And if I can, I will do some treadmill, maybe do some little exercise. And then I have a light breakfast, not a heavy breakfast. And then I go to work. Very quickly, I go to work.
So work is that thing that keeps driving you mentally, physically, and everything?
Among the things that forces me to work is a lot of people come to see me, asking for advice, asking for some help, and other problems that they have. They put it to me and ask me whether I could help them. So I am very much occupied eating people.
And dispensing very good advice like what you are giving to us today.
Well,
A lot of young people today, they deal with this issue of, mental health when it comes to juggling work and stress and their life. It seems to be a growing issue amongst those of us in the workforce, right? As someone who has been through very high stress times in your life, what kind of advice can you give us, in terms of dealing with this?
yeah, you must discipline yourself. For example, I taught myself not to get unduly angry. If something goes wrong, I don't get angry. I do it calmly. It's difficult at first, but over time, you learn to control your temper and also your emotions. You are not worked up with tension and stress and all that. That is very important. You have to learn how to tackle daily problems without getting too excited or too angry or too emotional. I see if you succumb to your emotion, the tendency is for your blood pressure also to rise.
Yeah, all kinds of health problems, right? Yeah.
So, to wrap up, I like to emphasize that cognitive development in adulthood isn't about decline. It's actually a time of continued growth, adaptation, and deep reflection. Throughout the presentation, we explore how adult thinking becomes more flexible and mature, especially through post-formal thought, pragmatic reasoning, and relativistic thinking. We also look at what fuels this growth, the 4 contributing factors, 6 stages of development, and 3 major theories. We even revisited the disengagement theory, once mainstream, now widely criticized, reminding us how ideas about aging have evolved. Then, we examined the challenges that chip away at cognition, neurodegenerative diseases, depression, anxiety, and polypharmacy. Finally, our case study of Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad showed that with mental stimulation, clear purpose, and active engagement, cognitive strength can stay razor sharp well into late adulthood. So, adulthood is not a cognitive downfall, it's a dynamic journey of change, learning, and resilience. Our minds keep leveling up as long as we feed them with curiosity, connection, and courage. Cognitive development in adulthood is not a slow fade, it's a transformation. A lifelong quest for wisdom and adaptability that proves the brain never stops surprising us. Thank you so much for traveling this mental timeline with us. We hope it left you thinking a little deeper, dreaming a little bigger, and believing a lot more in the power of a seasoned mind. That will be all from us. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. My name is Faeza Nadira, and that will be all from us.